This is Nick with logosbynick.com, and in today's tutorial I'll be demonstrating how you can create this cartoon style brain graphic using Inkscape. And at any point in this tutorial you could look down at the bottom left hand side of my screen to see which mouse clicks and keystrokes I'm using. So I'll minimize this and I'll get started. In Inkscape, the first thing we're going to do is just make sure that the view is set to custom, and then we'll zoom in at 1:1, 100%. Then we'll open up the Align and Distribute menu with this button up top. And we're going to want last selected chosen from this drop down, and then we'll open up the Edit Objects, Colors, Gradients, and Stroke tool. Okay, so the first thing we're going to do is create a circle. So come over to the Circles and Ellipses tool, and I'll just hold Control and Shift in the keyboard and click and drag to create a perfectly round circle like that. And I'll come back to the Select tool, and I'm going to take this with it selected. I'm going to come over to the opacity and drop that down about in half. And then I'll right click that circle and duplicate it. I'll turn that red. And then I'll right click it and duplicate it again, and turn it green. And then I'll hold Control on the keyboard and click and drag this left arrow. I'll click and drag that to the right a little bit just to scale that down about that much. And then I'll hold Control and take this right arrow and scale this up a little bit, maybe about that much. And I'm actually just going to hold Control and pull this out a little more just to make that a little bigger. And that's pretty good. Once you're done, you could hold Shift and click on the red circle and go to Path, Difference. So what I'm going to do now is I'm going to click and drag over both of those and group them together with the Group button up here, Group Selected Objects. And I'll take this. I'm going to right click it and go to Duplicate. And I'm going to put this up here. And then I'm going to click on it again to get the rotation handles. And once I get the rotation handles, I'll hold Control on the keyboard and grab one of these this top right arrow and rotate this around 1, 2, 3, 3 steps like that. That's pretty good. And then I'll right click that and go to Duplicate, and I'll put this over here. And I'll click on this again to get the rotation handles again. And I'll hold Control and just rotate this around until it's sitting perfectly upright like that. If you look at the two bottom corners, you can see they're sitting upright. So that's how we want to have that positioned. Just like that. And I'm going to position this right about here. And then I'll take this circle and hold Shift and click on that circle. And I'll right click those and go to Duplicate. And I'll flip them horizontally with this button. Flip Selected Objects horizontally. And then hold Control on the keyboard and just click and drag these over to the right. About right there. And then I'm going to click on this circle, hold Shift, and click on these other two circles so we have all three of them selected. And I'll right click that and go to Duplicate, and I'll flip that vertically and hold Control and click and drag these down to about here. So what I'll do now is I'm going to click and drag over all of that and ungroup it with this button up here, Ungroup Selected Objects. Click that a few times just to make sure that they are indeed ungrouped, and you can see they're ungrouped individually like that. And what I'm going to do now is I'm going to get rid of some of these areas where the red pieces are intersecting. So I'm going to click on this red shape, and I'm going to right click that and go to Duplicate, hold Shift in the keyboard and click on this red shape and go to Path, Difference. And then I'll go to Path, Break Apart, and then I'll hold Shift and click on this red object to deselect it, and we'll just have this piece selected right here. And with that selected, we could press Delete on the keyboard to get rid of that. And you can see what happened there. I'll take these two and bring it out. We got rid of that little piece that was sticking out, and I'm going to go around and do the same thing around all of these. So next I'll take this piece right here that we just edited. I'll right click that and go to Duplicate, hold Shift, click on that red piece, go to Path, Difference, and then Path, Break Apart, hold Shift, click on that red shape to deselect it, and just press Delete on the keyboard to get rid of that selected shape. Do the same thing again. Click on this one, right click that, duplicate, hold Shift, click on this red piece, Path, Difference, Path, Break Apart, hold Shift, click on that red piece to deselect it, and then just press Delete on the keyboard to get rid of that other area where it was intersecting. And again, I just want to show you exactly what I'm doing here. I'm getting rid of those intersecting areas so we end up with something like this here. And for this one, I'm actually going to take this red object right here, and I'm going to right click that and go to Duplicate. and hold Shift, click on this red object, and go to Path, Difference, and then Path, Break Apart. Hold Shift, click on that red object to deselect it, and then press Delete. And I'll do this again. I'll click on this one, right click, duplicate, hold Shift, click on that red object, Path, Difference, Path, Break Apart, and hold Shift, click on that red object to deselect it, and press Delete on the keyboard to get rid of that. And I'll take this object here, and I'll right click that and go to Duplicate, hold Shift, click on that red object, Path, Difference, Path, Break Apart, hold Shift and click on that red object to deselect it, and then press Delete. And we'll do this again with this one. Right click, duplicate, hold Shift, we'll click on this object this time, and go to Path, Difference, and then Path, Break Apart. And we could hold Shift and click on that to deselect it, and then with that intersecting area selected, just press Delete on the keyboard. And one last time, we'll take this object, right click that, go to Duplicate, hold Shift, click on this red object here to the left, and go to Path, Difference, Path, Break Apart, hold Shift and click on that red object, press Delete on the keyboard to get rid of it. And then what I'm going to do is I'm going to click on this red object and then hold Shift and click on all of the other red objects so that we have each one of them selected. And with them all selected, I'll go to Path, Union, and then I'll raise that to the top with this button, Raise Selected Object to the top. And you'll see what that created there. Created like that, that sort of brain-looking kind of shape outline, and that's going to work as the outline. So with that selected, let's right-click this and go to Duplicate, and let's turn that green, and go to Path, Break Apart, and then Path, Union. Oh, you know what? I just ran into a little glitch there. That was not supposed to happen. Let me redo that. What was supposed to happen, it was supposed to unify together into one shape. If that happened to you as well, I'm going to show you a little way to work around that. But if that didn't happen, then you're good to go. You could just wait until I'm finished with this. So let me do that again. I'm going to right click this, go to Duplicate, turn it green, Path, Break Apart, and then hold Shift. And you'll notice there's two different green objects here. You notice the outline, the dotted outline. That means there's two different selected objects. There's a green object inside of here and a green object outside of here. I'm going to hold Shift and click on the bigger green object to deselect it. And then I'll just press Delete to delete that, that smaller green object. Then we just have this big green object right here. And that we can just take that and drop that to the bottom. Lower selection to the bottom. And that's going to represent like the fill color of the entire brain graphic. So what I'll do now is I'm going to take this black circle right here, and I'm going to right click that and go to Duplicate, and I'll turn that blue, and I'll hold Control on the keyboard and click and drag this out a little bit to make this a little bigger, maybe about that much. And I'm going to take this red circle, I'm just going to hold Control and move it to the right until it's about, actually no, I'm just going to bring this down a little bit actually. I'm going to put this right about here. Try to gauge it up so that like it's going near, the edge of it's going where this red corner is right there. The corner of this red object. So I'm going to put this right about here. And then I'll right click that and go to Duplicate and hold Shift and click on this black circle that we just duplicated and go to Path, Difference. So that we end up with this little piece inside of there. That's going to represent where like the shadowing is. I'll show you here. You notice like the shadowing? That's what those are going to represent. So we're going to go around and do that on all of the these top circles here. So I'm going to do the same thing. I'm going to put this red object right about just a little bit over where that red corner is. And then I'll right click it and go to Duplicate, hold Shift, click on the black circle and go to Path, Difference. And I'll take this and put this over here. I'm going to put this right where that red corner is, but I'm going to make sure the blue is going over where, you notice where the two black objects right here are intersecting right there. We're going to want to make sure that the blue is going over that, like that. And then we can right click that, go to Duplicate, hold Shift, click on the black circle, and go to Path, Difference. And again, I'll take this blue circle, I'll take this blue circle, I'll put this over here. I'll put this right about here, right click that and go to duplicate, hold shift, click on the black circle there and go to path, difference. And then this blue circle, I think we're done with this for now. We can just delete that. And I'm going to take this black circle right here, and I'm going to hold Control and Shift and scale this in a little bit, maybe about that much. Let me zoom back out. And I'm going to put this in right about here. I'm going to place it in. Notice like the outline of the red circle right there. I'm going to place it in there kind of like that. That's how we want it positioned. I'm going to take these black circles and just delete them right here, these bottom ones. And I'll take this black circle, right click that and duplicate that. And I'll put this on the inner edge of those other objects as well. Put that there, maybe a little closer. Right click, duplicate, put that here. Right click, duplicate, put that here. And these are going to be like the like a reflective light kind of thing. And I'll go back to the thumbnail and show you. Notice like these little white shapes right here. That's what these are going to represent. So in order to create that, let's take this circle here, right click that and go to duplicate, turn that blue, and I'll hold Control on the keyboard and grab this top left arrow and scale that up a little bit, maybe about that much. And I'll bring this out to about here, maybe about that much. And then I'll right click that and go to duplicate and hold shift and click on the black circle beneath it and go to path, difference. And I'll move this out of the way and you can see we have that little object there that's going to be indicative of that, that little white reflection, the little reflection of light. So let me go over here and do the same thing. I'll put this right about here. Right click that, go to duplicate, hold shift, click on the black circle beneath it, path, difference. Take this, put this over here on that circle, maybe about right, maybe a little closer, about there. Right click that, go to duplicate, hold shift, click on the black circle and go to path, difference. And then finally we could take this blue circle and put this over here, maybe right about there, and then hold shift and click on the black circle and go to path, difference. So now that we've done that, let's click and drag over the entire thing. Let me just press 1 on the keyboard to make sure I'm zoomed out to 100%. Okay, I am. And with it all selected, I'm going to take the opacity and bring it all up, and we can start coloring this thing in. Let me click off of it to deselect. I'm going to click on the green object right here, and I'm going to color this in with a shade of pink. We want to make this the shade of pink that we want this the brain to be. Maybe maybe something like that. And then I'll click on this black object and then hold shift in the keyboard and go and click on the other black objects at the top there. And I'll make that a darker shade of pink. Maybe, what was I using? You know what? I'm going to press F7 to get the dropper, and I'm going to make them the same shade that this pink is in here. And then I'm going to come over to the Fill tab, and under the HSL tab, I'll come over to the L row and slide that to the left a little bit, just to make that a little darker. And then I'll go back to the Select tool. I'll click on the red outline, this red outline right here. I'm just going to make that a little darker by sliding the L row over to the left. Maybe I'll make that a little more dull by sliding the S row over a little bit. That looks pretty good. And I can take this black shape and then hold shift and go and click on the other black shapes. Press F7 to get the dropper. And again, we'll make that the same shade of pink that the interior of the brain graphic is. And come over to the L column and slide that to the right a little bit to make that a little lighter. Maybe about that much. And then we go back to the Select tool and click off of it to deselect everything. So if you look now, we seem to have this problem where these objects, these shading objects are spilling over. You notice it's spilling into the red outline there. I'm going to fix that by, well, first off, let's zoom into it first. I'm just going to press plus in the keyboard to zoom in. And then I can press down on the mouse wheel and move the mouse to move the page around like that. Let's grab the Bezier pen, which is right here, or you can just press B on the keyboard as a shortcut. And I'm going to start this line going right here, and I'm going to put it inside of that red outline and create this line going through this red outline like that. And then bring it back around to the starting point. Go back to the Select tool. I'm going to hold shift in the keyboard and click on this pink shape right here, that darker pink shape, and go to Path, difference. And that got rid of that out of that circle area right there. And we're going to do the same thing with this shape. So let's press B on the keyboard to get back to the Bezier pen. And I'm going to start this line going inside of this red shape. Bring it around the outside and connect it back to the starting point. Come back to the select tool. We'll hold shift, click on that white shape to select it, and go to path, difference. And again, I'll go back to the Bezier pen to do the same to this side. Start this line on the inside of the red outline. Click, bring it around, back to the starting point. Go back to the select tool, hold shift, click on the white shape, and go to path, difference. And what we're going to do now is we're going to lower this. These little ends are still sticking out into the red outline area. So I'm just going to go and click this lower one step, and it puts that beneath the red outline there. So it's no longer sticking out into anything. And let me come back around over here. Again, I'm just pressing down the mouse wheel and moving the mouse to do this, to move the page around. Otherwise, there should be little scrolling arrows on the edge of the page here. And it looks like we just have to do the same to this shape right here. I'm just going to take this, and I'm just going to lower that one step to put that beneath that outline. And then we'll press 1 on the keyboard to zoom back out. And let me click off of that to deselect everything. What I'm going to do now is I'm going to create a little stem for the brain right here. I'll show you in the graphic. You notice there's a little stem right there. To do that, I'm just going to grab the Bezier pen, press B on the keyboard. Press B on the keyboard and click on... I'm going to start this line going inside of the graphic right here and click. And bring this line out here. And then click. And then bring this up here. And then click. And then bring it back through here and back to the starting point. And I'll press F7 on the keyboard to get the dropper. I'll make this the same shade of pink that the darker shade is, because this by default is going to be a little darker. So I'll make this shade right here. And I'm going to get rid of that black outline, otherwise known as the stroke, by coming down here to the color picker, bringing this all the way back over. And there should be an X all the way to the left. We could just hold shift and click on that X, and that gets rid of the black outline. So let's go back to the select tool and let's lower this to the bottom. And I'll come over here to the Edit Paths by Nodes tool. And again, I'm just going to zoom in on this by pressing plus in the keyboard. And I'm going to take this line right here. I'm just going to move that. I'm just going to click and drag that line to give that a bit of a dip like that. And to make that a little smoother, I'm going to click on the node and these little handles will show up. I'll take this handle, bring that out a little bit. I'll take this handle, put this up here. I'll take this handle, bring that in, and bring this one up here. Maybe just adjust that, tweak it to however looks good. I think that looks pretty fluid and smooth, so that's pretty good. I'll leave that how it is. I'll go back to the select tool, and I'll right click this and go to duplicate, and I'll press F7 to get the dropper, and I'm going to make this the same shade that this red outline is by just clicking on that red outline. And I'm going to give that an outline that's the same shade of red that is as well. So I'm going to hold shift and click on that red section again, and that's going to put an outline around it. I'll go back to the select tool, and I'll lower this to the bottom, and I'll go back to the stroke style tab. I'm going to make that red outline thicker, so let me erase the number 1 there. Let me try a 25-point stroke. We want the outline to match the thickness of the other red outline, so I'm going to go a little thicker on this. Maybe I'll try 40. Maybe a little thicker, 45. I'm going to give this a rounded join and a rounded cap. And let me zoom out a little bit. Maybe just a little thicker. Maybe I'll go with 50. And that's good enough. So once we've done that, we can go to path, stroke to path, path, break apart, and then path, union. And that's no longer a stroke. That's now a vector shape, just like everything else in here. So another thing we could do is we could put a little bit of a shadow in here to make it look like the brain is casting a shadow over the stem. To do that, I'm going to click on this pink shape. I'll right click that and go to duplicate, and I'll come over to the fill tab, and I'm going to make this a little darker by sliding the L column to the left a little bit. And let me bring the opacity down about in half for now, just so I can see through it. And make sure we're on the select tool. I'm going to click on this pink shape here in the middle, and I'll right click that and go to duplicate. And I'll make this green and bring the opacity of that down in half. And I'm just going to bring this down and put this over right about here. And I'll hold shift and click on that pink shape and go to path, intersection. And I'll bring the opacity of that all the way up, and I'm going to lower that down a few steps. So I'll come up here to the lower selection one step. I'll click on that once, 2, 3, 4. And there we have a little bit of a, we have it looking like it's kind of casting a shadow over the stem there. Then we could just click and drag over the whole thing and group it together. Just hold Control and Shift and scale it in a little bit. And there we pretty much have our brain graphics. So let me go back to the thumbnail. If you notice, there's a white outline going around this. I'll show you how to do that as well. But first I'm going to put a backdrop behind this. So I'm going to come over to the Squares and Rectangles tool and click and drag to create a square going over that. I'll get rid of that big ugly outline by holding Shift and clicking on the X. And I'll make this rectangle a shade of blue, maybe a light shade of blue like that. Come back to the Select tool, lower this to the bottom. And I'm just going to click and drag over both of those and make sure that they are centered on the vertical and horizontal axis so we know it's centered up. And then we could hold Shift and click on the blue rectangle to deselect it. And then we could right click on this brain graphic and go to Duplicate. And then we could ungroup it and go to Path, Union. And then come back down to the color picker, turn that white, lower that one step, and give that a white outline by holding Shift and clicking on the color white. And you see we have a white outline there. Even though it's a little thick, we can come over to the Stroke Style tab and bring that down a little bit, maybe 30 or 25 even. That looks pretty good. And there we have our vector brain graphic. So if you have any questions, let me know. And as always, thank you for watching.